Hi guys, in this video I'm going to go over connecting to an Access database using VBA. It's pretty straightforward. Before we do that, go to Excel VBA SQL.com and you can watch hours and hours of Excel videos, Excel VBA videos. You can sign up for a live VBA class coming up on March 23rd and the 30th, and it'll teach you everything you need to know if you're a beginner. So let's get started. Let's say we have an Access database that looks like this. If you don't know Access, send me an email, and if there's enough interest, I'll put up a video on Access. But Access is just a database software where you can create tables and query those tables. So we have a table here called company. Here's the company table. It has 4 fields in it. The first field is called ID, the second field is called company, third field is called business date, the fourth field is amount. And then I have data in each field, and you can see that data here. And it just has the company. Notice the companies are different. Company 1, company 2, company 3, company 4, company 5. The business date is all the same, and then there's amounts for those business dates and those corresponding companies, and you can see those amounts here. So what we want to do is take this data and somehow get it onto a worksheet using VBA programmatically. So you don't have to copy this. You could copy this, you could export it, but we want to do it programmatically. So we're going to use VBA to do that. So we're going to write a query, and I'm going to show you a couple ways to query this data in VBA. The first way is we're going to write a SQL query that looks similar to this SQL query right here. Let me just close this here. So the first query we're going to write, well actually we're just going to look at, it's going to look like this. Simply select company, business date, and amount from the table company. So that's all this query is doing. It's selecting 3 fields from this table company. And if we look at that again, here's the table company. I'm selecting this field, which is company. I'm selecting this field, which is business date, and selecting this field, which is amount. That's what this query does. Again, let's take a look at it. It selects 3 fields from this table. And this, if you're confused about this company dot, all that is specifying the table. It's saying here's the table dot, what's the field name. So that we know our table name is company, so it's just company dot business date. That's just saying the table name dot field name. So I'm selecting 3 fields from the company table. Cool. Okay. And I gave that query a name. I called it get amounts. And I'm not going to go over how to write the query or how to name it. It's easy. If you don't know, if there's interest in Access videos, let me know. But the point is that I have a query called get amounts in Access, and what it does when I run it, it returns 3 fields and all the data. So all we want to do is run this query in VBA. So let's go to VBA now, and I wrote a sub procedure here, and I put these comments in here, but you could read them later if you want. I'm just going to get to the code here. So I put option explicit at the top so that I have to declare all my variables. That's all this means. It means you have to declare all your variables. Then I have the name of my sub procedure Access. I go down and I declare a string variable called SQL query string. Now this is going to be the string of the SQL statement I'm going to pass in to Access, and we'll see that in a second. Then I declare an object called a record set, and it's an ADODB.record set. So there's a ADODB object, and record set is I believe it's a property. We could look at it right here. If I go to the object browser and I just look in record set, record sets. Okay, so property record set as object. So there's an object, there's an ADODB object, and it has a property called record set. If you don't understand the Excel object model, go watch the Excel object model videos on Excel VBA SQL.com. Anyways, I have a record set. So what is this doing? This is going to hold the data. Once I pull back this data from Access, I need a what's called a record set object to hold the data. That's all it's doing. Okay, cool. Now I need a connection object here, an ADODB.connection object. I declare CN as a connection object, and that's going to be the connection to the Access database. And this one, do I need this one? Actually, no, I don't need this one because I named it CN Access. So I have three things declared. A query string, that's declared as string. I have a record set object, and I have a connection object. That's all we need right now. Then I have in Excel, I have a worksheet called database right there, and I want to select the sheet here, and then I'm going to clear the contents of the sheet. That's what this line does. It's just going to clear the contents. And now I take that connection object and I use the keyword set, because anytime you want to assign something to an object in VBA, you have to use the keyword set. So I do set CN access, which is my connection object, equal to a new ADODB.connection. All this is doing is saying create me a new connection object. That's all it's doing. Here you declared it as an object, but you need to assign it something before you can use it. That's why you need this new ADODB connection, because it can't be null. There can't be nothing in it when it gets to the next line here. So when it gets to this line, you want to open the connection. After you assign it a new connection object using this line, now you can open it, and the opening is done using this provider parameter here, and you want to type in this Microsoft.ace.oledb.12, and then you want to type in the path of your database on your computer. So the path goes in this data source parameter right here, and you type in where is the database located on your computer. And in my case, it's located here. It's on my C drive in my users folder, in another directory called Mark, and then another directory called Documents, and then the name of my database is here, company.acc.db. Now I'm using Access 2007. It's the same thing for 2012. Okay, so let's test this right now, and it's not going to work, but I know why it's not going to work, and I want to show you why it's not going to work. So I'm going to click Run, and I get this error. It says compile error, user defined type not defined. So I click OK. Let me see what happens. It's highlighted that ADODB record set. If I run it again, it highlighted that ADODB record set, right? And it's saying that type is not defined. Now this happens all the time when you try to use databases in VBA when you first start out. If you haven't done this before, it probably would have happened to you, but now that you're going to see this video, hopefully it won't. You need to include a reference. So how do you include a reference? And what reference do you need? You need to include a reference by clicking on this Tools menu up here, this Tools option on the toolbar, and go to References. So Tools, References, and then you want to include a certain reference that's called Microsoft ActiveX Data Objects, whatever the highest version is of this thing here. Microsoft ActiveX Data Objects 6.1 in my case library. Once I click OK here, I can go back just to show you what happened. When I check that off, now it's included as an available reference up here. So now I have this Microsoft ActiveX library that includes the definition of these things, these ADODB connections and record sets and all that stuff. So now when I run it, everything worked. Very cool. So there's no errors so far. I put a breakpoint there and I just ran it. But that error, you have to be very aware of that error, because when you start programming with databases, you definitely absolutely need a reference to that library in VBA, and I just showed you how to do that. Okay, so now what do we do now? Now we want to, we want to set the SQL query string equal to something. We want to assign something to that. So up here, remember, I declared this string variable SQL query string. That's going to be the query string we want to pass into Access. And we're going to do it two ways. The first way, I'm actually not going to use this getAmounts query that we see in Access here. So I'm not going to call that name at all. First way, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to write a simple SQL statement like this. Select company, business date, amount from company. So this is a SQL statement. This is actual SQL code. You can run that exact code in SQL, whether it's Access or SQL Server 2008. MySQL might be a little different. There's different database software, but this will work for SQL Server and Access. And so I take that query in quotations and I assign it to my SQL query string variable, and then I work with my record set object by setting the record set equal to a new ADODB record set. And then, if you're confused about this, it's the same thing as this up here. You have an object. Whenever you have an object, you have to use the set keyword. Versus a variable, notice I'm not using the set keyword, right? This is an object. This is a primitive variable like string, double, integer, all the very simple stuff. You don't need the set keyword. And then when you get more complex using objects, you have to use the set keyword. Okay, fine. So there I set my record set object to a new record set, and now I can open my record set by passing in the SQL string, which I have here. That's what this is. And then I have I pass in the my connection object, and then I pass in this other stuff. And what is this other stuff? Well, look up here at this line right above. Here is like the template for how to open a record set. Record set.open, you need to have these, you can have these parameters. These are all optional parameters, but you can pass these in. These are the available parameters to pass in. The first parameter to pass in when you do something like this, a record set.open, is the source. Well, we know what that is. The source is our SQL query string, which we see here. The second parameter is the active connection to your database. Well, we know what that is. That's what we did up here. That's our connection object. The third is the cursor type. And if we look online, very briefly, I went to MSDN, and you can go to MSDN, where up here this URL, msdn.microsoft.com, and you could Google around and you could find this record set.open function. And this cursor type is defined here as the value that determines the type of cursor that should be used. And all a cursor is, so if I click on that, it'll show you the different cursor types, and here they are. And all they are is they define how you can iterate over that record set. So you're going to get data back from the database, and this parameter tells you, can you loop over that record set only going forward or backwards or both. And I'm going to use AD open to forward only, which is the default value, and it is a forward only cursor, so you can only go forward in the record set. The next parameter, if we go back to VBA, is this lock type, and in my case I'm using add lock type optimistic. Well, what is that? If I click on MSDN again, I could see what are the different options, and here they are. And this AD lock optimistic, which is what I use in my VBA code for this video, it says the provider uses optimistic locking, and it locks records only when you call the update method. So what is this about? The locking is basically when you execute a SQL statement someone else on a different computer might be executing another SQL statement, and which one of them is going to change the record first, that could create a problem. So what happens is there's a locking mechanism that is placed on records when you want to edit them, like update them, delete them, or insert records. Or update and deleting. You can lock the record so that you're the only person dealing with the record in the database. So for instance, if I want to change this row, I can lock the row so that I'm the only one using it, so that when I execute my query, no one else is coming in and executing their query, and then I don't get some crazy data back. That's all this locking parameter is. So you could Google around on MSDN, find out more about this lock type. I'm using add lock type optimistic. And then there's this other parameter options, and it's not necessary in this video for me to use it, so you can Google on that. But the point is, this line here opens this open record set, rs.open. Actually, when this is done, the record set object is going to be populated with all your data. So this line is the most important line in the video because it populates your data in VBA. Now you can't see it yet because we didn't put it on the worksheet, but the next line we will. So this is the most important line, and again, this is the query string, this is the connection, and then these other ones are those parameters that we just looked at. Okay, so now after this line, this record set object rs is going to have our data in it, and all we want to do is put it on the worksheet. That's very simple. You can just do active sheet.cells. You could put an address. This is the row you want, this is the column you want, and then you use this copy from record set function that takes this record set rs and puts it in that initial address, so row 2 column 10. So if I run this now, I go back to Excel. So notice the worksheet is blank. I want to put my data in row 2 column 10, which is going to be somewhere over here, and I'm gonna start this up, and I'm going to move it down a little, and then I'm just going to run it, and look at there. So there's the data in Excel. That data right there came from this access table that we saw earlier right there. It's the same exact data, and I put a breakpoint right here. So after this line, the data is on the worksheet. Very cool, right? So that might be enough for you. But I'm going to go a little bit further in this video. There's the data in Excel, but we're going to do something else here just for a few more minutes, or I'm going to show you how to loop through that record set. So okay, so now we have this record set. It has the data in it, and we see that data here, right? There's the data. It came from this object here, this rs, this record set object, and I put it in that cell, row 2 column 10, and it dropped it right there, row 2 column 10. Now let's say you want to loop through this in code VBA programmatically. It's real easy to do, only you need to move to the first record set. You need to move to the first record before you can loop through it. Now why is that? You need to do this line rs.move first. What this does, rs.move first, is it moves to the first record in the record set, which is this record. This is the first record. This is the second record. This is the third, the fourth, the fifth, right? So that rs.move first moves to the top. It moves to the first record set. Why do you need to do that? It's because after you run this code here, after you use this copy from record set, what happened behind the scenes that you didn't see is that the record set was looped through, record by record. It went from here to here, and it went from that record to this record to this record, and it ended up, after it put the data on the worksheet, it ended up outside of the record set. It looped through the whole record set to put it on the worksheet. So you need to go back to the top if you want to loop through it. And that's what that line of code does. And we'll see that it works in 1 second. Now we can use a do until loop statement and just do this. Do until rs.eof. .eof means end of file. And all that really means is you want to loop over this object, this record set object, until you looped over all the records. That's all that means. And in order to iterate through the record set, you have to use this line, rs.moveNext. So there's the loop here to loop over a record set. Our record set is named rs. We want to loop until we want to loop over all the records. That's why you use rs.eof, and you want to iterate going over every record by using rs.moveNext. Now, how do you access these fields that you see here? Well, we could see that in a message box. If you want to access a field in the record set, the field is called company. And where's that field again? That field is coming from this right here, the header that you see in access, company. And if you want to access it, you just do rs exclamation point and then the name of the field you want to access. So now, if we run this, notice a message box pops up with company 1, and what it's doing is it's accessing this field in the first record. So the field is the company field in the first record, which is company 1. Then you click OK, and the loop goes to company 2, which is the second field in the company field, or the second record in the company field. And then company 3, company 4, company 5, and then you're done. So now we just looped over a record set and we accessed the fields in that record set programmatically in VBA. Now, just to clean up stuff, we close the record set using rs.close, and then we set the record set equal to nothing so that your memory is cleared, and there you go. Okay, cool. I just want to show you that move first is necessary. So if I comment this out and I put a breakpoint here, let's see if we see those message boxes. And you don't. I don't see any message boxes. That's because after you do this line, the record set is at the end of file. It's at the very last record. There's nothing to iterate through, and you need this line here. So you need to have that move first. Okay. Now, I just want to show you, instead of using this SQL statement that I wrote, we can actually use the name of the query in Access, this get amounts, which is the query name in Access right here, the get amounts. Again, if I run this, I could just double click it and it returns that. And the same thing in VBA, you could just use the name of that query and assign it to the SQL query string, and then if you run it, you get your loop and it works, right? So there's two ways to query. Oops. I gotta finish this. There you go. Okay, so we just saw that we can use a SQL statement like this. You can actually write it by hand, or you can use the query name from Access. Okay, now I'm going to show you three more things: how to insert into the Access database, how to update the Access database, and how to delete from the database. And it's very, very simple. You just write SQL code in VBA in quotation marks, and you assign it to the SQL query string. Notice in the insert part, I have an insert statement: insert into company business name amount, test 125 2013 and 5600. Let's make it 9900. So I write the SQL statement in VBA, I put it in quotation marks, I assign it to that query string, and then I do this cn.execute. What this does is execute this query string. It executes this command text, and this AD_CMD text is telling the execute, or this connection object, what kind of SQL statement you're using. And this time we're using a text statement, meaning this is the text statement right here. Okay. In other videos, I'll show you how to do a store procedure, but right now we're just doing a SQL statement or a SQL text command. So we have our connection.execute. This is our connection object. We do .execute and the name of our SQL string, and then this blank here is for a records affected. You could Google that and find out what that means. But let's see if this worked. So what I want to do is insert a new record in the database and see that it's 9,900. So if I run this now, company 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll go back up here and I want to comment out this message box because I don't want to see it anymore. And then we could go into Access and I could close this and I could open the table again, and look what happened. We have a new row, test 125 9900. That's exactly what we see here, test 125 9900. So we just inserted from VBA right into Access. And if you don't, this is very cool. If you want to insert stuff from an Excel worksheet, you could use the quotation marks and you could append, variable names like variable 1. That's how you would do it with something like that. So you could break up this SQL statement with quotation marks and the ampersand, and you could actually use variables. That's where this gets really powerful, because let's say you have a worksheet full of data, you want to put it all in an Access database. You could just create a loop and loop over the worksheet and create variables for the data on the sheet and go down a column and put all this data into the database. But you have to use the quotations and the ampersands. Okay, now let's look at how to update. It's the same thing. So let's update this data. Let's update this data here and set the company equal to test update, where the company is called test. So we want to change the name here from test to test update. That's what this update statement will do. And again, we do the same thing as before. We have our connection object here. We use the execute. We use our SQL query string, which is this again, the update statement now. And we have that parameter AD command text that tells the connection object, the execute function actually, that it's a SQL text. So now if we run this, we can close this and then open it again. And there you see test update. And why is there 2? Well, there's 2 because it also inserted a row up here, right? Every time you run it, it's going to insert a row for this test that we saw before. But the point is that the insert statement worked, the update statement worked, and now we could delete stuff. So now let's delete all these things that we just inserted by deleting all the companies where there's a company name of test update. So here's our SQL statement, delete from company where company equals test update. And I'll put this, I could just run the whole thing now. And again, we do it the same way. You have your SQL query string, you put in your SQL code, and you do, with your execute function, you pass in the SQL query string and the parameter. And now if you run this, if I go to Access and I close the table and open it again, all that test update company, all those test update companies are gone because the delete statement worked. So that's what I wanted to show you in this video. The most important things are understanding, what variables you need, what objects you need, a record set object, a connection object, and a SQL string object. How to open the connection here using that bit of code, the provider and the source. How to set how to open the record set using the SQL query string, the connection object, and then you could put the data on the worksheet using the copy from record set function. You remember you need this move first after you do that because it's going to loop to the end, and then you can loop through the record set using this. You could access the fields in the record set here with the exclamation point. Then you could insert, update, or delete from the Access database. using straight SQL code in parentheses and a execute function on the connection object. And again, to make it more complex, if you wanted, you can always do things like this. When here I have some comments. If you use a loop, then do something like this. You can access values on your worksheet and break up your SQL statement using the ampersand and quotation marks. So you need a quotation mark, so you're sort of breaking up this string that's in parentheses using the ampersand. And then you need a variable name or a reference to something on the worksheet like this, and then another ampersand, and then another quotation mark, and then more SQL code, and then another parentheses, and then another ampersand, and more variables or more things like that. So that's it for this video. Again, guys, I'm going to put this code on Excel VBA SQL.com. You could watch the video. You can download it. Remember, if you're a beginner and you want to get up to speed really fast, sign up for this live VBA online class. It'll get you up to speed for sure. Here's an example. Well, okay. There's just a ton of code we go over in this, and you get a copy of it, and you'll go from nothing to advanced level VBA. If you have questions, send me questions. If you have any problems or need consulting, send me an email. All right, guys, take it easy. Bye.